So today I'm going to show you how I took synthetic braiding hair and turned it into a track. Hello my moons and suns, come right here with Elon Blue Talks, where I help you to make stunning wigs through easy to follow steps, explore simple protective hairstyle options, and share tips on growing healthy, beautiful hair naturally. If you haven't already, take a moment to subscribe to my channel to catch more videos just like this. All links in this video will be in the description box below. So this video is all about how I took this, which is braiding hair, and turned it into this. And I am using this to make a wig. I'm gonna sew the back portion on a machine, and I'm going to crochet the front portion so that for the most part it looks like a crochet wig but without all the work. So the process to make the track for me was a lot more simpler than to crochet an entire wig, so that's why I'm using this method. To begin, it may seem a little bit tedious or long in comparison to making a crochet wig, but I think overall it is much faster. And if you decided to make a whole bunch of tracks first and then start sewing them onto a wig, the process is so much faster than sitting and crocheting an entire wig. So that's why I'm doing this. But for many reasons, tracks are useful, or making your own track is useful, because one, you can combine and mix colors together that would not necessarily be accessible in stores. Some of the wigs that I make, I have to blend the colors together. So if I did that and then turned it into a bundle of tracks, that would be completely amazing and so useful. So for that reason, I like to make tracks. Another reason why tracks are useful is, or making your own track is useful, is that typically it's kind of difficult to find synthetic tracks or synthetic wefts at a store. You can find some, but to be consistent with it, you may have to just make your own until the supply or the demand is there for the stores to stock them themselves. But as of right now, I find it kind of difficult to find synthetic tracks or synthetic wefts. So making it kind of is my better alternative. So I just decided to do just that, especially in the kind of texture that I'm looking for. Sometimes I can find a track in one texture and then can't find it in another kind of texture that I'm looking for. So just to be more in control of what I'm trying to do, I'm a do-it-yourself kind of girl, so I just decided to make it myself. I watched a video online on how to make it. I made it a long time ago. I attempted to make a weft a long time ago, and it was interesting. It was doable. It wasn't the best job I've done, but it was interesting. And then recently I came across a video, and I'll put that link in the description box below so that you can check that out. I'm sure his method is just a little bit different than mine. I did switch it up a little, and even since recording this video, I've switched it up again. So I may have to do another one on the new technique. I think it is better. But I think because this is one of those things that you're kind of learning and growing as you go along, it may be a couple of other videos that I do as I evolve in this track making process. So definitely expect more of this. If you are interested, please comment below so that it can encourage me to do more of these videos. But as of right now, we're just going to start with the method that I recently did. Like I said, I do have another method that I am using now, but because the video is already recorded, I figured I might as well post it. So if you're interested in the newer version and the more updated version, just comment below that you are interested, and I'll do a video on that because it's a little bit easier than what we got going on right now. But you know, at least you know where I started at, and who knows where I'll finish. Okay, so again, so the hair that I'm using is Jamaican braid pre-stretched, and this was a bundle of 3, and I bought 2 packs. One of them was 18 inches and the other one was 24. I'll show you the images of that in the next clip. But as of for now, let's get started. So what you're gonna need to get started, you're gonna need tape, and preferably painter's tape, because you really want the tape to not stick to the hair too much. Just enough to hold the hair, but not so much to where when it's time to take it off, you can't. So I find that painter's tape usually works pretty good. You're gonna need a pair of scissors, any scissors will do, and measuring tape as well. A pen if you have it, because you are also going to, I find it easier to have a ruler placed down where I'm going to be working. So I have a ruler that goes from 1 to 15 inches, and I chose 15 because more than likely none of my wefts are going to have to be more than 15 inches. So I decided to work with that. And I also measured 16 inches long because I wanted to know how long my hair was. So I put a 16-inch measurement for the hair as well. So to begin, I measured out my head and I counted the rows of tracks I was going to need to cover up my whole head. That number was 12. So I measured out 12 rows of the tracks that I was going to need in order to cover up my head. And because I'm doing tracks and crochet, with the crochet being at the front of my head, and then the tracks being from the crown on down, I counted out 12. I also measured my head, and I know that my nape measurements and my crown measurements and all of that. I have a 23-inch head size, so I know the circumference of my head, and none of the tracks are going to be more than 15 inches. So that's, even though these say 15.4, that's just the extra room that I'm gonna need, that I like to have in order to make it happen. So the first row that I'm gonna measure out is gonna be 5 1/4. That's gonna be my first row. My second row is gonna be 6 inches. My third row is gonna be 8 inches. Fourth row is gonna be 10 inch, and so on, so on. So this is what I'm going to be basing my measurements for the tracks on. Okay? Okay. Here we go. I bought this brand of Jamaican braid. This is pre-stretched Jamaican hair, Jamaican braiding hair, in a 613, and this one is 18. This one is 18 inches. I also bought another one, and this one is, I believe it is 24 inches. I'm gonna put this part of it in the back, and then I'm gonna work this one up towards the front. So we're working with one hair at a time, and as you can see, it has a rubber band that divides the hair in half. We're gonna cut that hair. Okay. So we're gonna work with one bundle at a time. So my first tape is gonna be 5 1/4. so 5 1/4, and then 5 about 1/4 here. So because I am, so let's do 10 and 2/8. So because I am measuring, I'm going to be making 2 of these, 2 tapes, because I need 1 tape to cover over the other. So for instance, I'm going to cut off this one here, and 5 1/4 is about right here, and then set that here. It doesn't have to be perfect, so don't worry about that. Do you see that? Okay, so we have 2 because they're gonna sandwich each other and hold the hairs together. So the next one is 6. So for 6, we're gonna measure out 12 and then cut it in half. We'll do 6 1/2 just to give it a little bit more room. Okay, and we'll stop there for now and go ahead and put these 2 together. So for the first one, I'm going to lay it out. We're going to grab some hair. I'm going to fan it out a little bit. We're gonna take the tape. And then I like to put the number on there. So this one is 5. Or you could put 1. Okay, so we're gonna put 1. And 1, and that lets me know that this is the first track, and we're going to put that aside. Okay, so this one is going to be 10 inches across. I'm going to start there and work our way over. That's good enough. So then we're gonna measure and put another row of tape. So there's so many ways you can do this. I feel like this way might be my best way because of the space that I have to work with in order for the tape not to get messed up or get rolled up where now I have to use another tape to hold it down. I think this might be a better solution for me. Press it down, and like I said, don't worry if it doesn't hold very well because it's just not going to with this tape. So this is number 4, 10 inches. We're going to set that aside. So far we have 4, 3, 2, and 1, and we got to get to 12, and it only gets longer. So we're on 4, which is 10 inches. We're going to do 11 and a half now. repeat this process all the way through. And if you guys want, I can do a video on how I measured my head size in order to know how many wefts I was going to need, as well as how long the wefts were going to be. So that is definitely something I can do. But there are videos already out in which I learned how to measure my head size. But I can definitely do a video on how I counted the wefts in order to know how many to make. Because you could always make just a whole bunch of wefts, all the same size, maybe like the largest size the largest weft you'll need on your head. Make all of them that size and just cut it. Because even with this process, you'll need to cut. I just didn't want to have to work more than create more wefts than I needed. So if I knew how many and what size each one was gonna be, I figured it might save me some time and effort. Because creating a whole bunch of 15-inch wefts might be a little time consuming. And of course just having to cut it and all of that. So yeah. So we are done with this one. And this one is going to be number 6. So once I've gone through and created all 12 track pieces, I'm gonna go ahead and go to the next step, which is sewing. So I am preparing the sewing machine now, switching out the thread for a proper white thread, since the hair that I'm using is a 613 platinum blonde. I want it to be as close to that as possible. My stitching pattern is, well, I'm using the Brother Project Runway sewing machine. I've had this one for years and I love it. It has multiple stitching options, and to begin I'm going to use the 01. So it begins with 00 and then it goes over to 01. 01 places the needle right in the center, which is the pattern I'm going to be using, and this is just a straight stitch. To begin, we'll go into different stitches as we continue making this weft, but for now it's just going to be a straight stitch. I am using paper as well to hold and to guide and to make the process of sewing hair on this sewing machine much easier. For one, the paper flattens the hair so that the needle has a much easier time going through. It also creates a fold line when it is time for me to fold the hair down in order to stitch it. And it also creates a cutting line, so when it's time to take the paper off, it is much easier to remove it. So we'll go ahead and go through the process of stitching. I am doing both back stitch and front stitch. Back stitch is not really necessary for this, but for some reason I have a habit of back stitching when I start and when I finish, so I just back stitch, but you don't have to, not for this process. By the way, I am stitching about 1.5 inches away from the paper and the tape line. So both the paper and the tape are lined up together, and I stitch about 1.5 inches away from that line so that it gives the fold line a nice amount of space in between.
So we are living, as it were, on many, many levels of rhythm. This is the nature of change. If you resist it, you have dukkha, you have frustration and suffering. But on the other hand, if you understand change, you don't cling to it, and you let it flow, then it's no problem. It becomes positively beautiful, which is why in poetry, the theme of the evanescence of the world is beautiful. See, it's always the image of change that really makes the poem. Japanese have a word, yugen, Y-U-G-E-N, which has no English equivalent whatsoever. Yugen is, in a way, digging change. It's described poetically. You have the feeling of yugen when you see out in the distant water some ships hidden behind a far-off island. You have the feeling of yugen when you watch wild geese suddenly seen and then lost in the clouds. When you look across Mount Tamalpais, and you've never been to the other side, and you see the sky beyond, you don't go over there to look and see what's on the other side. That wouldn't be yugen. You let the other side be the other side. And it evokes something in your imagination, but you don't attempt to define it, to pin it down. Yugen. going of things in the world is marvelous. They go. Where do they go? Don't answer, because that would spoil the mystery.
Okay, so now that we've completed the first sewing process, which we use a straight stitch with, we are moving on to the next process, which is removing the tape from the hair. Okay, and like I said, sewing the paper onto the hair has multi-usage, one of them being that it creates a cutting line so that when it's time to remove it off, it's much easier, and you just follow along on the cutted line and just rip the paper off or tear it off. Then what I'm doing is removing the tape off of the hair, and sometimes the tape is a little bit more difficult to remove, so I put weights on the hair so that the hairs aren't moving and pulling out as I'm removing the tape. I did iron the hair down, which creates a nice fold, as well as it heats up the paper and steams the paper so that it can tear easily. I am also heating the hair so that it flattens a bit more, and I am heating or steaming the tape, which allows for the stickiness of it to reduce. Sometimes it's not as efficient, so keep scissors handy just in case you have to cut something off. So now I'm just flattening the hair as best I can, because we do have another process of sewing the rest of the hair down with a different kind of stitch. So I just want the hair to be as flat as possible when it goes back onto the sewing machine, especially in the area that I'm going to be stitching.
So now that we've completed that process, I'm gonna go ahead and move on to the next process, which is the second stitch. So for the second stitch, I'm gonna be using the stitch number 15, which is a more zigzag stitch, and it's gonna help to hold the hairs together just a little bit more. Now, of course, it's not going to hold it completely, so there is going to be a lot of shedding. So there will be a lot of shedding if you don't apply some kind of glue. Some people have used nail polish. The video that I learned this from, he used nail polish as well as fabric glue. So those are some options as well. I'm not going to do that because I'm also going to be stitching it to a wig, which provides even more security. So I think I'm going to be okay. Plus the hair is curly, and I find that the curlier hairs don't shed as bad as the straight ones. So I'm just going to stick with stitching and move from there. So again, the stitch I'm using is the 15, which is a more zigzag stitch, and let's do it. And look, y'all, I know my nails look a hot mess. I have allowed it to grow out way too long. And, ooh, girl, the new growth is real. But let me tell you all about it real quick. This is not polish. It is a sticker, an adhesive sticker that I purchased from like Walmart or something before I went on a trip. And about a month ago, I put it on and it is still there. It hasn't chipped. The most it's done is really grown out, which is actually kind of amazing. So I am absolutely in love with this nail. And I mean, the process was so easy. There was no mess. It didn't need any drying time. It's absolutely amazing. Actually, I'm now looking for new patterns and new designs so that I can continue on with this because it looks so good. Now I know it doesn't look good now on my hands because it's grown out, but trust me, when I first put it on, it looked so good. So I'm gonna put a link in the description box of the new one that I purchased. So this is the stitch we have. It looks nothing like the photo, but that's what we got, and it'll do. So yes, I am finished. That is it. And yeah, that's how I make my whips.
Okay, and that is the end of this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope it was helpful. I hope you learned something, and if you've made tracks yourself and you have some tips, please leave some comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share, and until next time, thank you so much, guys. Peace.